Hey there, how are you doing? It's lockdown, somewhere over day 30, I can't quite remember which day. And over the last week I've been doing quite a bit of cleaning at home, and what I thought I'd do today is do a full oven clean. I do this on a professional basis, and then you can adapt the method that I use to suit what you do at home. Let's get cracking. Now this is my oven cleaning kit. There are plenty of old cloths in the top, strong rubber gloves, there's various scrapers and so on in this top thing. So this is my kit, proprietary oven cleaner, and then there's some other oven cleaner which I'll come to in just a second. What these are is underbed storage units, which I bought from Argos, relatively cheap, I can't quite remember how much, and I use one of them to keep all my equipment in, and then the second one is what I use for soaking things in. And you need access to a tap and hot water. If you haven't got hot water from a tap, you will need lots of freshly boiled water, because oven cleaning, especially cleaning the interior of the oven, the racks and trays, is so much easier if you use hot water. You're going to fill this up with hot water first, then get to the gubbins of the oven. Now, I shouldn't need to put any more than that in it. And I do like to work on the draining board with this, simply because once I've finished with this, it's easier just to tip it straight down the sink. You might not have a setup like this at your house. What you might have done is gone and bought some of those, one of those oven cleaning bag kits. This is basically doing the same thing as one of those oven cleaning bag kits. This is the equivalent of the bag. What I'm going to do next is add the chemical, and then the chemical is the same stuff as you get in the bottle in one of those kits. So just follow the instructions if you've got one of those kits, but I'm going to show you how I do it. As you can see, I don't have gloves on at the moment. I'm not handling chemical as yet. So let's have a look inside the oven. As you can see, it's a little bit brown and so on in the racks and trays. So let's get those out and put them into the solution. So we'll get these out. That's on one side. Put that on there. Let's take the big ones out first. Everything is covered by the water. Inside the oven, you can see it's ready for cleaning, and what we're also going to do is take these out too. Wow, that's stiff. One of the things that often makes this job a little easier is taking the actual oven door off. And for oven doors like these are really easy. And what you do is you raise those, pull those back as far as possible, then when you lift the door, they catch, and the oven door just lifts out. And as you can see, with the door out, these just catch on the bottom there, which hold these hinges in place. With the door out, that makes it easier for me to work inside the oven. The last of those into the water. Now what we do is we add the chemicals. So if this was your bag, you'd now be adding your chemical to the bag. All oven cleaners are basically the same product. They're all caustic soda, also known as sodium hydroxide, also known as lye, L-Y-E. And they all do the same thing. They all break down fats. In order to do that, it does help if they're warm. But if not, one of the reasons why I'm using hotter water is because it'll make this easier to clean. Right, okay, so that can just be left while we move on to doing some work on the inside of the oven. And if you look at the back where the fan is, ideally that could do with cleaning too. The light cover could do to come off too, so I'll switch that off for the time being. screwdriver and see if we can get the back panel off that's covering the fan. And if we can, that too can go in the water, it can go in the chemical. Now I'm not an oven technician, so I don't take any of this apart. I generally take the light cover off, but this one doesn't appear, even though there's movement on it, it doesn't appear to want to come off. So I will clean that in situ. We also need to remove this seal. This seal comes off in the doorway, and I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that's a bit grim in there. So what I'm going to do is it just lifts off. There's little hooks. They're all basically the same. They all just lift off, and I'm going to drop that in the dip tank. But before we use our oven cleaner in here, it's a good idea just to get rid of any loose debris out of the bottom of the oven. Things like you might find like chips or whatever that have fallen in and been forgotten about. And from this front lip here, you often get a lot of dirt that gathers just inside the doorway. So what we'll do now is give this a good shake, and then just starting at the top, being careful not to breathe this in because this stuff is harsh. It's one of the reasons why I'm very cautious about having the light on. The light is often activated by the fan, so the fan blows stuff at you. This one doesn't, thankfully. What I always do is I take a deep breath and I hold it while I spray, and then move away from the oven to breathe again. Yes, I could use a mask. I happen to not have any at hand at the moment. The objective is to just get a good covering all around the surfaces of the oven. Bear in mind that this will drip into the bottom, which is why I start on the walls first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the oven on and just put it on at about 50 to 75 degrees, just so that the heat from the oven will help activate the chemical. This isn't a particularly bad one, it's not going to take much doing at all. Often what I'd need to do is keep applying this a couple of times and go in, scrape off what it's loosened, and then have another go. But this one isn't too bad. I'm just going to spray around some of these areas because there's a little bit of grease residue. It's had a chance to heat up a little bit. It has evaporated some of the chemical, so we'll just add a little bit more. That should do it. So for this next phase, gloves on, because this stuff is such an effective degreaser. All caustic soda is such an effective degreaser. It will take all the fats out of your hands. So we're going to move on to the two best friends that you'll come across for cleaning ovens. One, a glass scraper, the type of scraper that you use as a razor blade that you use for scraping residue on glass. And two, a steel scourer. We're going to put that to the side for the minute because the first stage is to scrape everything with the glass scraper. And all you do is you run the scraper along all the surfaces, and you can hear when it's catching something, and you can feel it. And eventually everything goes a kind of dirty brown. It does get to a phase where all you can do is wash it off and have a look, see where you're at. And that's where we're at now. So now we get one of our old cloths, doesn't matter at this stage whether it's wet or dry, and just give it a wipe over, and then you can see what there is left. You can see what you've missed, in other words. Now that's not looking too bad in there. There's a few bits at the back there that I'm just going to have a second go at. The great thing is, once you've taken all the dirt out of the oven, it's just so easy to see the bits that need touching up, the bits that you've missed. Give it another wet clean, then using an old tea towel, just dry it up. There we go, look at that, that's not bad at all. And what you want it to be is in a state where you've got rid of all the debris that's in there that's likely to contaminate anything that you cook with its smells as it bakes and burns on. And then also it makes your house stink too, so we get rid of all of that, and then all your cooking has that nice fresh, better smell. So we now move on to one of the final stages. Just so that you're aware, I'm not going to be doing anything with the oven door because I did that previously. It is an easy one to clean, the glass doesn't remove, you just clean the interior of the glass, so I've already done that. So now what we move on to is this, and as you can see there's lots of fat already come to the surface. This has been in here for an hour or two, and this is a particularly strong solution of caustic soda, which is why it's been effective so quickly. So now we need some hot water again, so we'll just do that seal first. The seals are never usually too bad. Just give that a quick wipe over. Just making sure that you get into the grooves of the seal with the cloth. If you need to, you can always use a brush, a stiff brush, if it's particularly bad. This one, as I say, is not too bad. Pop that to one side to dry. Drop a fairy liquid detergent in. Now this is going to be the worst piece. This was the back panel where the fan was, and you can see it was actually quite thick. I'm just going to give this a quick scour over, and that's brought most of that off. All of it actually. And then just leave that to drain. One of the plus sides of this is all drain unblockers, they're all basically other mixtures of this, sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, and they create warmth within the drain in order to loosen the fats and so on. So actually working with this stuff in your sink helps unblock your drain if you've got any blocked drains. Next thing, we're just going to do the tray holders, the rack holders. Even though I'm using the scourer, I'm not having to use any effort to really clean these up, because the chemical has done what it's supposed to do, it's softened everything up, and this hasn't been in there that long. If you were to leave these overnight in your bag at home, it should all just wash off the next day. This is the racking from the grill tray. It's got a bit more burnt on dirt on it, but burnt on, baked on stuff, but it's coming off alright. Now, if the tray has got a load of baked on dirt on it, your best bet is to have a go with your trusty glass scraper. You can tell when you've got it off because it makes a different sound. You heard that scraping sound it made. It's just not catching on anything anymore, so it stops making that sound. And the scour to pick up any small bits and to get into those edges and corners. Hey Google, stop. Ooh, this is probably the worst one out of all of them. That'll do. Right, so you've got these to go back in and this to go back in on the back panel. it often pays in times like this to have this slightly magnetised so that you can hold your screw on while you hold the plate in place. And if you put the central screw back in first, top centre, you should be able to get it in so that it holds while you put the other top ones in. You only need to be these. Remember I said about these little catches? They just push back. Put the seal back into place. And that's it, that's the oven nicely freshened up. All I recommend from this point is it is wise to close the door, turn the oven on to about 150 degrees and just let it burn for a couple of minutes. And the reason I say that is it'll just burn off. Leave it on for about 10 minutes and the whole purpose is just to burn off any residual chemical so that it doesn't contaminate your food. Once that's done, you shouldn't do it because it's been rinsed, but once that's done, your oven's good to go. And that's it. I hope you found this useful. Please let me know in the comments if you have. What I've done here is I've basically given this oven a bit of a refresh, clean. I've not done it as thoroughly as I would do if I was doing somebody's house or doing it professionally. I'm just refreshing my own oven and using this time during the lockdown just to show you some of the things you can do just to pass a bit of time and to come out of the lockdown having done something useful. So that's all for now. Stay safe, stay indoors, save lives, all that stuff. And above all, even though this isn't maybe the most fun thing you can do, try to have a little fun. See you all soon. Cheerio.